and I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. Who the heck is looking for this? Who is buying this? Who cares about this? On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk ISC West, normalizing turnover, and AV technicians are in demand. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 375, AR Ready. Welcome to a special episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by my grandma, my favorite person in East Alton, Illinois.
Wow.
It's Timothy Albright. He's the founder of AVNation and my grandma, Tim. How you doing, Tim?
I'm fine. How are you?
Fantastic.
Sorry, I had to cough before I talked.
It's what we do. 3, 2, 1. All right, Tim. It is the end of Easter weekend, so everybody is jammed with 2 short weeks. So thanks for jumping in and chatting with me a little bit today. We are going to kick it off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro, ISC West. It's a recap that brings the bustle and then some to Vegas. We actually had Avi on last week, who was at ISC West, and he talked a lot about it. So A, you can listen to that episode, but B, go and read through the article. They talk about the 500 exhibitors that were there and how excited per se everyone seemed to be at the show. There's a video that goes along with it. Tim, what I wanted to ask you about was one of the things that they hit on, and Avi hit on as well, was the fact that attendees were excited and energized and, seemed quite positive in their outlook on the future. And also that manufacturers were bringing new products to the table, which hasn't really been the case in a while. So typically the last couple of years when we talk about trade shows, we ask the inevitable, are trade shows back? And everybody goes, yes, it's great to be friendly together. So I do want to ask that question in the sense of, are we back on track with product releases and companies actually showing new stuff? But I also want to ask about the positive outlook. And I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy, but I'm reading a lot of stuff that says that this positive outlook is there, but it's overlooking a lot of factors that are implying that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Where are we at with that?
I will. I listened to the episode. I love Avi and his outlook. I was in Dallas last week with our buddy Michael Peevler from Alice IED, sponsor of AVNation. They were an exhibitor at ISC West. This is the story that Michael relayed to me. He said first day of the show, typically he'll be able to get a lunch break around noon or 1, right? Yeah. He said show starts at 10 a.m. He turned around and it was 4:30 p.m. and he had not had a break. Now, as an exhibitor, for on a human level, holy crap, that's a long time of going and talking. And but from an exhibitor standpoint, you love to hear that because that means number one, you're busy. Your booth is busy, and you're not noticing the time, right? You're not watching the seconds crawl by. Your day has absolutely blown by. But the excitement level as well is what Michael relayed to me. He said the folks were excited. They were energetic. They were excited about the future. They were optimistic about the future. Now, a little bit of what you're relaying to, I think, is the economic forecast, right? Yeah. The potential recession, the potential economic downturn. And you and I have both been to several conferences. We've listened to enough economists over the years. We've heard enough people with PhDs in economics and stuff like that to understand that these folks sometimes are wrong. More often they're right, but sometimes they're wrong. And if you look at some of the sectors, right, the new home builds are down, right? Mm-hmm. But and the housing market itself is getting to be a bit soft. It is not what it was 2 years ago, where you could take, X in your house and double it just because you wanted to sell it in any given market, St. Louis included. So that's pulled back a bit. The demand is softening on that, but there's no other indication that either on the residential side or the commercial side that the economy overall is going to take a hit. Doesn't mean it's not going to. Doesn't mean that the war in Ukraine or some of the other factors, the supply chain, which is still an issue, and I don't care what manufacturer you listen to, it is still an issue in some sectors. It's a big one. Yeah, I mean, it's there are manufacturers that are producing product now, and they are shipping, and it may not be, they may not have it in stock, but 4 weeks is better than no weeks, right? Yeah. So at least they're getting there. But we're not out of the woods yet, right? So all of these factors are there, and there's a lot of unknowns. I'm not trying to be a rose-colored glasses type person, but there's nothing on the horizon necessarily that is like this big, ominous, oh my gosh, the economy is going to come crashing to a halt. I say that with one caveat. I don't know that anybody, with the exception of the people that were the main characters in The Big Short, saw the economic crash happen in 2008. Yeah. So certainly there is something that could come down the pipeline, but there's nothing that's like overarching, oh my gosh, the economy is going to grind to a halt.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you want more on my insight on that, DM me and I'll happily show you some pointers that might give you some caution. All right, let's change topics for a second so I don't soapbox. This comes to us from Residential Systems and a good fan of the show, Mr. Henry Clifford. Normalizing turnover, why it's not always a bad thing when an employee decides to leave your company. Henry, as always, has a really good take on things. And in this one, he's covering a recent outflow that his company Livewire had last year that they labeled the Texodus, where people were leaving and potentially there was some upheaval. Through it, he goes through kind of the keeper test that they use as far as if someone comes in and hands in their resignation, is that someone that you want to fight to keep? Or is that someone who you go, oh man, I hate to see you go. Don't let the door hit you. Because we've all had those people on both sides of the argument. And in this case, they lost a great employee that moved on to bigger and better things. But in place of that individual leaving, a new electrical person came in that they were very excited to see. Tim, I want to start with you on this because I'll start with you, the only one here. But
I wasn't going to say that, but I'm glad you did.
We in this channel are not very good at normalizing, to his point, turnover. Turnover is constant. And when you talk to any, especially small business owner that you deal with, they are used to it. They expect it. They know that most employees, especially at a certain level, they've got a life cycle. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, but a lot of positions have a life cycle. You don't expect to see someone sitting at that, in this case, an entry level or even a mid-level technician for 5 years. They're either going to move up or they're going to move on. What is it about our industry where we seem to be isolated from that? Is it the nature of us typically being smaller businesses where turnover seems to be so cutting and almost taken as like a personal betrayal a lot of times?
I would say that the vast majority, what it is it comes down to the small company size, right? It is such a tight-knit group. It is such a tight-knit family that anytime somebody leaves, I mean, if you have a company of 10, well, that's 10% of your work staff, right?
Yeah.
If 10% of Cisco or 10% of Amazon walked out the door, it would be a major news story, right? If 10% of your company, Matt, walked out the door, I would say it's even bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is such a small group. It is such a small family. CTI this year, my day job, we've got a bit over 600. if 60 people in our company left, that would be huge.
That'd be
So
massive.
you look at it from a percentage standpoint, and these 10, 20, $30 million companies are generally ran by less than 50 people. Anything like that, it is a big hit. And the other side of this is, how are you replacing them? You have talked about this. I've talked about this. People smarter than both of us have talked about the labor shortage, not just in the AV industry, but in society at large, but technology as a specific niche there. It's hard to find people, and we can talk about, let's get them in the high schools, let's get them in the trade schools, and let's get them green and educate them. That's great, right? That's a fantastic idea. That doesn't help you tomorrow pull cable, right? That doesn't help you tomorrow commission a system at a $500,000 home. It just doesn't, right? And so, yes, we should be considerate of our long-term plans, of our long-term issues. But where are you going to finish your job that has to be finished next week and next month? And it does go a little bit back to, a little bit of the chip shortage. When the chip shortage dams do break, and I'm not gonna, there are different years from different people. Some say this year, some say 24. I have unfortunately heard 25 come out of some people's mouth. Suddenly, the integrators, the residential dealers, the CDM members are going to find that their warehouses are full of equipment that they didn't have a year ago, and they're going to be able to finish these jobs, which is fantastic, except they don't have the people power to do that. So anytime you lose people, it's a big hit.
So let me ask you this, and again, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but I have to bring it up again because we talked a couple of weeks ago about trying to get more women into the industry. We've talked about trying to get more diversity into the industry. At the end of the day, we do just need more people in the industry in general. There's been talk about big tech and all the layoffs that big tech has had in the last 6 months. Those people in big tech can't find either jobs, or they're still, the employers are still looking for people when there should be a surplus of talent. In our industry, both resi and commercial, there is not a surplus of talent. There is a massive deficit of talent, and no one has a practical solution for bringing people on. I'll take it this far. I also own a small construction company that specifically does millwork. You would think it would be easy to find a laborer, but we can't even do that.
No,
we're having the heck of a time finding someone who can literally get paid fairly well to go to the truck and grab a tool and bring it back.
Define fairly well, and do I have to be a Canadian citizen?
No, and fairly well is, me, fairly well. And you get healthcare up here.
That's true.
I don't think anyone has a solution to this at all. I don't think I have clients that own restaurants that can't get servers.
Yep.
So where did people go, and what the heck do our service industries? Because that's what we are at the end of the day.
Yep.
We supply people who facilitate a service. What happens to our industry 5 years down the road if this trend continues or doesn't dramatically increase?
We got a business. I mean, that's the straight answer. We got a business. The big get bigger, and the small go out of business or get gobbled up by the bigger ones. The folks that can pay more, the folks that can create a better culture. There's one thing here that pay is one thing, right? And you and I both know stories of people like like Henry that will lose people because of somebody's paying them twice as much depending on the market. Fine, awesome, groovy. You know what? You're a 26, 30-year-old that suddenly somebody's paying you twice as much as what you're making today. Dude, go do it.
It's not sustainable though.
It is not, right? And it's also typically not a great culture.
No,
because you have to pay more to get them in your culture and keep them. And that's the one thing that we're noticing on the commercial side. Again, I'll reference my day job. We have had, I'm not going to say several, or I'm not going to name a number, but we have had quite a few, especially techs, return to the fold, as it were, after you spend a month or 2 or 6 in a culture that, yes, is paying you more money, but no, is not a place you want to be, right? Is not
Yeah.
a place you want to spend time. These are not people you want to work with on a daily basis. These are not people you want to be surrounded by, right?
Yeah.
And so the folks that are in their 20s and early 30s are recognizing that, and I think that is some of what the service industry is seeing. And I'll pick on fast food for a minute. You know, fast food has been a horrible job for years. It was when I was in high school,
Yeah.
right? It's thankless. You make minimum wage, right? Which here in the States is like 35 cents. I know in Canada it's $45 an hour, but
Yeah,
in
it's
the
massive.
States it's expensive, right? But you have to pay for healthcare. But
Yeah.
it's a thankless job, and the managers, and I am painting broad strokes here, so don't at me. The managers, by and large, are not that great, right? Because they're not getting paid well. And finally, through the pandemic and through everything else, folks were finally like, you know what? My life is worth more than minimum wage. And I want to do things that enrich me, that inspire me, that enhance my life. Now, yes, they have to they have to pay bills, right? But there are other options out there than getting berated every day, depending on the environment.
Yeah. I so want to dig into that, but then we'll cover nothing else.
Okay,
And this isn't a show about minimum wage.
it's your show, dude. I don't care.
Yeah, no, it just it in a sense it ties into a little bit on the next article from CE Pro, where AV technician has been rated as one of the most interesting no degree jobs in the U.S. From a report from Job Sage Reports. In and amongst that, or kind of included in that, uh, front of house AV or audio technician, I should say. Sorry, sound engineer specifically was also included in that grouping, where the average salary for an AV technician, and again, this is U.S. based, so do your math if you want, somewhere between 40 and 60,000 a year, which is okay money. It's not phenomenal money. It's around 20 to 30 bucks an hour, give or take. Which again is not bad money. What I wonder about when I see articles like this, and again, you only see these in our trade magazines. If you go in and search for that report in any other service or news org, they're not highlighting the AV technician aspect.
No.
But in terms of what you said previously, as far as people realizing that no, they don't want to work fast food because the environment may not be great, they're also not sliding into the AV world or the construction world or anything else. We had my dad had a driveway done 2 years ago, kind of mid-pandemic, and I was unaware, but asphalt pays really well, shockingly enough, because it's dirty, hard, stinking work.
Hot.
They had people that were literally hired on for that day to start, and by 10 o'clock they were walking away to the bus stop because it was hard. We've had people that we've hired that worked for 2 days when they were inside and they were great. The second we got outside in the summer to dig a trench for a conduit, they didn't last till noon and they were gone and asking for 2 weeks pay, which is adorable. This report would show a positive outlook on getting people into our industry because, again, it's a no degree position. You can make decent money. And you don't have to go to trade school, which is a big one. How do we as an industry try to convert this information into anything other than this information? Because I don't think, and I'm not going to nitpick immensely on our trade orgs, but this is the thing our trade orgs should be doing and doing significantly better. Because, and again, I'm going to soapbox for a second. the pushback I always get from the trade orgs is that I, as a business owner, need to get out and do what Henry does, right? And what a couple other people do as far as going into high schools and going into all this other stuff. And we've done that a little bit and we've tried that and nothing necessarily comes of it, but we're also not an org that's designed and specifically states in mission statements that they're trying to grow the industry. So how do you convert this information into, heck, 100 people coming into the industry across North America?
That would be huge.
It'd be massive.
I'm actually going to pick on or highlight a mutual friend of ours, and that's Richie Fregosa. Rich's wife, Dawn, has done something like this for years. She has done workforce training for years. She started in the Oakland school system and training inner city kids on how to become chefs and cooks and work in the service industry, work in the computer industry. She's had students present their apps and their startups, right? Incredible success stories. But I would say modeling something after what Dawn's doing, and that is, yes, it's getting in the high schools, but it's getting in the high schools on a level that's showing them the career path. It's showing them not just, hey, AV's cool, AV's groovy, right? Da, da, da. No, forget that. Show these young people that not only is this a valid career path for them, but it's one that they can make a livable wage without the anchor of college debt. Now, the anchor of college debt is an overarching statement, 100%. I don't care if you're talking about a trade school, you're talking about a bachelor's degree or master's degree, you're going to, unless your parents are independently wealthy, you're going to have some level of debt when you graduate high school.
Yep.
If you get some sort of training program, some sort of workforce development in your organization, then you can provide them not only a livable wage, a trade that they can grow up in, but also do so without this anchor. They're going to be incredibly indebted to you on an emotional and personal level. Doesn't mean they're never going to leave, but that does mean that they're going to have a certain level of loyalty to you for a certain length of time. You're also going to have one to them. Again, go back to the fact of these smaller and mid-sized companies. You have an employee base of 50, and you add 10 of these young people over the course of 4 or 5 years. Well, that's 5-6% of your workforce. That is a large percentage of your workforce being young, being imaginative. They'll have a different perspective. They'll bring you new ideas, not only on how to do the work, but also how to attract other young people who are closer to their age than the 50-year-old in the room.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's wrap this up quickly with arguably one of the most ridiculous things I've read in a long time.
That's saying something.
Yeah, because I read the news a lot. Oh, goodness. All right, this comes to us from Hidden Wires. AR glasses can create a 215-inch virtual display. Rokid, I believe, has launched its Rokid Max AR glasses that are small, lightweight, offer up to 600 nits of perceived brightness using a Sony Full HD Micro OLED panel that create a 615-inch screen 6 meters away, which equates to like 18 feet away, I think, give or take. With a 50-degree field of view. These retail for about $500, I believe I saw online. Tim, this just looks like gadgetry and ridiculousness to me. Yeah. Granted, I'll couple that with Apple supposedly has AR glasses coming out later this year. Supposedly. They continue as an industry, big tech continues to try to make this a thing. These are oddly affordable.
Yeah.
Given their specs. Who the heck is looking for this? Who is buying this? Who cares about this?
Mitchell picked this story, didn't he?
He did.
Okay, yeah. Because it's I poke fun at our fantastic producer, but
I never do that.
first of all, I think it's the tech companies who are looking for this, right? They're I mean, you remember a number of years ago, Google Glass, right? And the I'm not gonna say debacle, but the failure that it was. There will eventually be some version of augmented reality glasses and or contact lenses at some point in the future, most likely before I retire. Okay, so you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years ish. The question is this the one, right? Is this the one, or is the next one the one? Is it Samsung doing it, or is it Sony, or is it Google coming back again, or is it Amazon? I don't know the answer to that, but augmented reality has such a potential and has such a opportunity for everything from facial recognition, because if I walk up to you and I don't remember your name, because just for the record, I have a bad habit of that.
Yep.
Then it's going to help me do that. Or it's going to look at a plant when I'm hiking and go, no, don't eat that one, dummy, it's poisonous. Instead of pulling out my phone and using the app that does that, it would sync with my glasses. I don't, some of it's societal, right? Some of it's the age group of folks who grew up with technology, right? I look at people like my dad. My dad, who is in his 70s, would never do this, right? Would never wear this. But I would 100% do it if it was reliable, and if it had enough specs and it had enough, benefits that that I could see wearing them, and if the price was right, and if it did this, because I'll be 49 next month, and 3 years ago I said, shut up. I started wearing prescription lenses because I went through a couple of years of needing readers, and finally I said, screw it. And so I have prescription glasses because I'm already used to wearing the glasses, and I don't do contacts because, first of all, I'm freaked out about poking my eye out. And it's not that important to me. If somebody could take the glasses that I like, right, and make them prescription and put AR and put the other tech in it, and they didn't break the bank, I might do it. Yeah. But I don't think that society as a whole, you want to talk about market share, I don't think the market share is there yet.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. All right, let's wrap it up there. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. If people want to connect with you, listen to you on AV Week or anything else you're doing, where can they do that?
They can't.
Perfect.
You can find me at AVNation. You can also find me at CTI.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me there, but do not follow me on the Twitters.
Well, okay then. Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can still find me on Twitter at Matty Scott and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.